attack entrenching my veins. In an hour I'll be okay. I pray this pain will go away permanently someday. Sing more than I should have to. Sing this on my own. Their song is a poem to myself. It helps me to live. In case of fire, crash the glass and move on into your own.
Welcome to the Elite Life Podcast with your hosts, Trisha and Kylie. Here, we guide you on a journey of personal and professional transformation, revealing the secrets to success. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, join us as we unlock the doors to the elite world of growth, grit, and grace. So, let's dive in.
Welcome back, Elite Lifers. We are so excited for this episode today. I'm Kylie.
And I'm Trish, and today we're bringing you an amazing guest who truly embodies living the elite life.
Absolutely, that's right. So joining us today is Taylor Roberts, the rock star guitarist for Taproot and Riding with Killers. And not only is he a musical powerhouse, but he's also the owner of Rock and Roll Painting, a hugely successful commercial painting company. So Taylor, welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I'm glad we actually got this to happen because last time I believe I slept through our appointment. So
to be fair, I heard like you flew in at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, that was part of it too. I think that we had just gotten back from Los Angeles or something like that.
And that was fair.
I was dead to the world for the next 36 hours at least.
That's fair.
That's a rough turnover, the like LA to here, Hawaii to here. Like I've done it a couple times and you are dead to the world.
West to east is always the worst, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, just that time loss and just, I don't know. I always have to have at least a day to recenter myself and get my equilibrium back on track. And it's a process. I haven't mastered it just yet, but I don't think anybody has.
Well, I think it's one of those things where like by the time your body adjusts to the new time zone, it's time to come home and you're like, oh, that was nice. Now we're going to start this process all over again, right?
Yes, 100%.
Well, we are so excited to have you here today. And I have to say, I was like writing this podcast and I like popped over to your YouTube so I could listen to some Riding with Killers. And the second song that came up was your 9 Inch Nails cover song.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm like fangirling out because like that's actually like, so I had my son when I was 22 and I named him Trent after Trent Reznor.
No kidding. That's
like,
awesome.
I was such a big
I wore
fan.
the right shirt today.
You did. And actually that was one of the things that like me and my husband Dave vibed on is 9 Inch Nails was both of our like favorite band.
Same.
So in our engagement photos, there is actually a set of photos where we're both wearing 9 Inch Nails shirts.
No kidding. I love that. That's awesome. I saw this one today and I was like, that's the one.
It is.
It's always the one if I'm being real.
You guys did an amazing job on that cover.
Thank
I was
you.
like, wow, this is wild. Because they're not an easy band to cover by any means.
And I mean, what we essentially had to do with that song, because it's a rock song without being a rock song. It's more synth, because I mean, that's what 9 Inch Nails is a bunch of synths, drum machines. There are guitars, but like from like a rock band standpoint, like we're not a synth heavy band. So it's like we had to look at that song and essentially rewrite it as an electric guitar and an electric bass, a real acoustic drum kit. And it was just such a pleasure to get to live in Trent's head for a little bit. Cause that particular song, Every Day Is Exactly the Same, is my favorite 9 Inch Nails song, aside from Copy of a, which the live Vivo version from 2013, so good. But basically, I had felt at one point in my life, and I'm talking like blocks of years, were that song. And if I cover a song, it's not with the intention of, oh, maybe it'll get millions of views and we'll get famous. Like, no, I want to get big off of my own music, but if I'm going to cover something, it has to be something that I've experienced a full spectrum of emotion to. And that song means the world to me because, like I said, you know, it just feels like you can get in that repetition cycle. And, you know, that song just kind of embodies that. But once I found a way to break out of that cycle, you know, and moved up here, and I feel like my life actually started, like, that song just had so much more impact because it brings me back to those old days where I felt like I was just spinning my wheels and doing everything for nothing. And it's just a beautiful song at the end of the day.
It is.
But it can mess you up though too. Like that's one of those songs, like if you're in the wrong headspace and you listen to it on repeat on a long drive, it's just like my life is in shambles. And, like it can really play a fun, not a fun, but just a really big mental game on you. But if you use it for the right way, it's a very therapeutic song.
Yeah, I think that Nine Inch Nails, among other bands, is really good at like that speaking to your soul and the different spaces and places that you're in. You mentioned like listening to it on repeat, and it kind of takes you back to those younger days where like you catch a song and you're like in those feelings and you're just like over and over and over again. And it's funny because one song can be a lot of different feelings, like you were saying. So, but you mentioned like coming back up here. So we always like to start at the start. And we'd love if you told us a little bit about like growing up in Mississippi and kind of where you came from, and let our guests get to know a little bit more about you.
All right. Well, so I was born in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, but I grew up in Gulfport, Mississippi, which is really stupid to say, like, because Gulfport and Biloxi are like 20 minutes away from each other. Like it's one of those things you can drive 30 minutes on the Gulf Coast and you can hit like 5 different cities just like that. Like it should all just be Biloxi maybe. But I grew up in Gulfport. I grew up in, I would say, so for a good part of the first of my life, single parent, you know, raised by my mom, with my grandparents a lot, just because my mom was working 3 different jobs to make sure that we could make ends meet, and, you know, she could give me the opportunities that she could. And then she married my stepdad. And so we kind of did a little bit of moving around, but grew up in kind of a religious household, like more Catholic, which was hilarious because once I started listening to like new metal and rock music, my mom was like, no devil music in this house, you're turning into one of them freaks. And now she like absolutely loves what I do, which is hilarious because, you know, at first she was so against it. Like I remember specifically a long time ago, I had a Mudvayne CD, The End of All Things to Come, and this is one of those days, you know, you have a bad day at school and you're like, man, I can't wait to listen to that record when I get home. And I'm like searching frantically. I was like, Mom, where's my Mudvayne CD? And she's like, I threw it away. I read the lyrics and you don't need to be listening to stuff like that.
No.
And then fast forward to last year, I'm literally backstage and side stage with Mudvayne, and I know guys in the band now. And
That's amazing.
I'm sending my mom like text. I'm like, haha, look at this. You know? It's like turned out the way you didn't think it would, did you? But you know, like so going back to childhood, I mean, it wasn't the easiest for me. You know, like my left eye, it was way worse back then, but I've had probably 7 reconstructive surgeries on it. And so I was made fun of a lot. You know, I was not the rich kid at the preppy private Catholic school. So, you know, I kind of was like low man on the totem pole for most of my life. But, you know, once I found like hard rock and new metal and I realized that this world existed, like going back to Mudvayne, the first time I saw the Dig music video on MTV when I was like, God, probably 11 or 12, I was like, you can do that? Like you can express yourself, you can paint yourself like that. And when I found that music, it was like all those bands like just kind of picked me up and they're like, hey kid, you're not weird. You belong with us. We got you. And that's why I fell in love with that music so much. And so I ended up starting my musical journey on alto saxophone at age 7. And then when I heard Between Angels and Insects by the band Papa Roach at age 10, I was like, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. I need a guitar. I got to learn how to make those sounds. And then kind of the rest was history. I got a guitar for Christmas, like I was 10 that year, and then I started guitar lessons at Music Go Round in Biloxi, and then I would eventually land at Pinkston's Music, which is where I spent a good majority of my life on the Gulf Coast. Like there was almost 20 years of my life under that building. You know, I really bonded with my guitar instructor, Dave Knorr, Derek Fountain, who is the store manager, and right under him was Dave Devaney, like those guys. And I just like, I was one of those annoying rock kids that came in and would detune the guitars to drop D and play all these riffs, but I wasn't doing like Purple Rain or Crazy Train or like all these awful, you know, guitar store riffs that you're not allowed to play, kind of like Stairway to Heaven, There Will Be No Stairway.
I was just thinking of that scene, and I was like, oh, you're the Wayne's World guy.
Oh, yeah, and I'll give my mom, so it's so funny about that, like, and my ADHD is about to kick in full. I'm not medicated anymore, thank God. But my mom, like, raised me on Wayne's World and like Star Wars and, you know, Indiana Jones and Batman and like all these things that it's like, well, of course I landed where I landed with music and hard rock and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, circling back to Pinkston's, you know, the owner, Jim Pinkston, God rest his soul, he really took a liking to me. You know, he knew my whole family. He knew me really well. It got to a point of where, you know, before I started working there, I would go spend the night at his house, and his son was my age and he was a guitar player. So, you know what I mean? Like there was a real family bond that started at a young age at Pinkston's. And then eventually I started working there, and that was like one of the most coveted jobs on the Gulf Coast that you could get, especially if you were a musician. You know, like everybody wanted to work there, and for some reason I got the opportunity to do so. And I was there till probably about 27 years. And in the interim of all that, I was painting still. I started doing that at age like professionally, age 15. I've had a paintbrush in my hand since I was 8 with my grandpa. I know this is all over the place, and I apologize for that.
No, we are loving it.
We're
We're
here
here
for
like,
it.
yeah.
But
Yes,
it's
we are
like, oh,
buckled
here's
in,
this
sir.
story, but I got to circle back here, and then I got to jump here and circle back to that, so it all makes sense. But you know, like at Pinkston's, I really that's one of the most special places in my heart. You know, it's unfortunately not there anymore. Store's gone, you know, after Jim passed away, and you know, the coast completely changed after Katrina.
Yeah.
And everything else. But you know, that store was very special to me because it taught me a lot about life, love, music, business, and just everything in between. Like Jim, I was kind of like Jim's redheaded stepchild, you know.
Literally.
I mean, it's more red nowadays, but I'm naturally kind of like a strawberry blonde, gingerish kind of guy. So, you know, the cards were always stacked against me. But, you know, and what's crazy about Pinkston's, that's where I truly met Macy for the first time. And she was taking vocal lessons, and Macy's the girl I'm going to marry, by the way. And we've been together, only like 3.5 years at this point, but we've known each other for, probably 15. But Pinkston's was the first time that I actually really met her. She was taking vocal lessons from Fritzy, and she and Jim weren't married, but she was the mom part of the mom and pop guitar shop. Like she was just the sweetest woman in the world. You could be having the worst day of your life, and then you'd hear this raspy Southern voice say, "Hey, darling," and you turn around, this little tiny blonde lady with the biggest smile you've ever seen, and she'll give you the biggest hug, and you're like, what was that mad about again? But I thought that Macy was her daughter for the longest time because they were attached at the hip, and she just, same thing with me and Jim, like Fritzy did the same thing with Macy. And so like that store basically kind of gave me my life. You know, and I really hate that I can't go visit it anymore or see Jim or Fritzy. You know, they both passed away, but you know, a lot of where I'm at today is because of Pinkston's music, the community and the family we had created around that store. Because, you know, people from New Orleans and Jackson, Mississippi, and Mobile, Alabama, they would all converge to our store. You know, we had Guitar Center and C&M Music and other stuff around, but everybody was like, nope, we're going to Pinkston's because that's the spot to be at. And, you know, I got very lucky with getting to work there. And then, you know, as I started getting into my teens, you know, I started playing out with my first band from high school. And eventually, at age 18, I got to play my first stadium show. My band had won a competition with Ernie Ball strings, and it's Music Man guitars and basses as well. But we basically got to open the Rockstar Energy Taste of Chaos tour in 2008 with Atreyu, Avenged Sevenfold, and Bullet for My Valentine, 3 bands from Japan. This is the first time I ever played in front of 10,000 people.
At 18.
And how was that?
That's
Like,
amazing. Were you like freaking out?
No,
You were just chill, huh?
It felt like home. Like when I was there, like, because it's so funny, and I've always done this until I finally was like, no, I'm not working with a lead singer again. I'm gonna sing. But in my bands on the Gulf Coast, like for some reason, like even though I wasn't the singer, I was the front man. Because like I would talk to the crowd, I would get people hyped up, like I knew what to say at certain parts in songs, and that was the first time that I felt like it's like, okay, I've got command of 10,000 people right now, and
You got that rock star energy.
They're listening. Well, and because you know, like you've seen shows where someone's like, make some noise, and everyone's like crickets, but like in that moment, like with I guess the delivery and I was just going by the seat of my ass, I guess, but like, it worked, you know, and I felt energy from the crowd and it built me up versus breaking me down. And I was like, this is where I need to be. And that kind of like, I was already in love with live music and the whole idea of it, but that particular show, just really kicked it into overdrive. And I was like, okay, I know what I need to do. And from there, I just started going for every show opportunity that I could. We started booking our own crappy tours that, you know, like we didn't have enough money for hotels. So we were sleeping, like we literally slept in a van down by the river in Louisiana.
I love it. I love this so much.
And what was so bad about that one particular instance is it was the middle of like July or something. And we're like, oh my God, we're so hot. Roll down the windows, and then about 4 hours later, everyone wakes up just hitting it like like we probably had 300 mosquitoes that just jumped in the van. So we had to wake up, get going, roll the windows down, so it all
out.
You know. But eventually, you know, that would lead to, you know, we started becoming the band in the area. Okay, well they're not afraid to leave the hometown, and hey, they're gonna sell tickets, and so we started getting to open for all the big national bands that were coming through. You know, we got to play multiple CPR fests, which that's the same thing as what Riff Fest is up here with 101 The Riff. Shout out to Meltdown and Jade. But so I basically started, you know, really building the music career around, you know, those big festivals. And then eventually we got to play a couple shows with Taproot. We did a club show in Mobile, Alabama with them. I hung out with Phil and Steve, and fast forward 4 months later, we're doing another CPR fest, and Taproot's on it. So I walk up to Phil, and I'm like, hey, man, do you remember me at all? And he's like, yeah, Taylor from Catharsis. And like my jaw like went through the decking that we were standing on, like, through the floor, because it's like, I watched him on MTV when I was 10 years old. Like, why would you remember me, much less my stupid band name that's hard to spell and pronounce, which it did get mispronounced on radio, on show flyers, on it was the craziest, stupidest name I've ever come up with. But you know,
Lesson
whatever.
number 1.
yeah, make sure people can spell and say your band name and make it look right. So but you know, that would eventually that show that we did, you know, talking to Phil more and more, he ended up giving me his manager's number. We ended up on the same management team. And then my first North American tour was later that year with Taproot. And I ended up spending more time with those guys than I did my own band. Like, I think at one point, like my band got mad at me.
Mhm.
And I was like, but you guys kind of suck. Like, I'm gonna hang out with the Taproot guys.
But you're with us.
Well, no, they're with me. Actually, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, that's kind of the way that it was. But I formed a really great friendship with those guys. Like, it was just. Like it's Taproot. They were one of the 6-7 bands, that really made me care about my guitar when I was growing up. And, maybe I should learn how to write songs and do this, that, and the other. And so, that we did that tour, kept in touch with those guys over the years, and their touring drummer, Dave Coughlin, which he and his wife own Lucky Hair Salon Co. in Canton, Michigan. They're one of the top 200 salons in the country. He and I really, really bonded. Like, he's the older brother that I never got to have growing up. And, we basically kept in touch through playing Call of Duty, for like 10 years until we still play Call of Duty.
That's how Dave hangs out with his best friend Mark in Seattle. They play video games late at night.
Yeah.
And that's how we get, and it's so funny because Dave and I live like 35-40 minutes from each other, but it's not always easy to get over to hang out with,
right?
Because he's also the drummer of Sponge.
Yeah.
And he's always insanely busy on tour and everything else like that. So that is the most concrete way that we've been able to stay in touch. But then what I ended up doing when I decided to leave the Gulf Coast, quit my band that I had started in my parents' garage, which that was the worst thing ever. Like, I feel like I finally just got over that probably like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it you pour your life, like 18 years of your life into something, and then for it to fall apart, like it's a lot
tough.
to get over, for
Yeah,
sure.
for
It
sure.
was a lifetime, it felt like. But I called Dave and I was like, hey man, I'm gonna move to Detroit and we're gonna write a record together. And he was like, yeah, whatever, kid. And then I showed up.
And he was like, oh, he's about his business.
And I showed up. I ended up getting a commercial painting gig in order to move up here. And the guy who owned the studio also owned the commercial painting business. And so I moved up here. I was working nights like crazy. Do you know New Center 1 building by chance? I painted all 8 floors of that.
Wow.
It was funny because when I first got here, and then we can circle back to painting, like we were getting yelled at almost every other day. And I was like, what are we getting yelled at for? Because, when you first join a new company, you're like, well, I know what I'm doing, but I need to see how you do things. That way I can make sure I am adhering to your specifications. I'm doing it by you because it's your business. There's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat, which is a terrible phrase.
Right.
As the words were leaving my mouth, I was like, ew, gross. I love animals, dude. One of these days, like, I'm starting to realize that my crew lead at the time was the one who was doing all the cut-in work. And every aspect of painting is important, but your cut-in, that's kind of one of the most, because that's what creates the crisp lines, everything. I noticed he was putting paint all over like door jams and just like, I call it going surfing because you'll see waves. And so I was like, dude, give me the brush. And he was like, you don't like my cut-ins? I was like, no, I'm tired of getting yelled at. Give me the brush. And so I did that. I sent pictures to Mark and I was like, this is what I'm starting to do, let me do this. And then about 2 weeks later, and he's the guy that ended up leaving. I don't want to say I caused him to lose his job, but
The surfer.
yeah, but you know what? He does costume designs for movie sets and stuff. Like, that's his real passion.
Gotcha.
And now he's doing that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? He was at that point of where I think he was just like, okay, this is a paycheck. I don't care about it. I want to do my thing. And I feel like me coming into the picture kind of pushed him into...
You liberated him.
In a way.
did.
In a way.
Liberated him.
In a way. Like Ben's doing awesome. And like anytime like Renfest comes around, dude rents costumes to hundreds of people.
That's amazing.
And you get to work with theaters. Like I said, movies, like he's doing phenomenal, and it's awesome that it turned out that way. But I ended up getting put as crew lead over 2 guys over there, and that job was 6 months behind, and I caught it up in 2.
Nice.
And that's the thing, you know, and then that'll be a perfect segue into painting. But, you know, painting has always been how I've supported my dreams. And it got to a point where, you know, it's like, well, I'm doing all this work and I'm only making $23 an hour, 25 if I work nights. And that sucks, you know, because it's like, I know I didn't realize at the time how much money I was making for the company, but it's like, well, I'm doing start to finish. I have a degree in business. I have an extensive background in sales. Why am I not working for myself? And then COVID was kind of like the catalyst that allowed for that to happen, you know, because we were painting hospitals, we were doing professional complexes, we were doing, you know, office buildings. And after COVID, you know, you couldn't get in a hospital to paint for probably a year, if not more, while all of that was going down. And then everybody started working from home. So it's like nobody is exactly saying, hey, we can't wait to pay you thousands of dollars to paint this empty office space that we're not going to use. And, you know, I hung on with that company until probably, I want to say mid-July of 2021. And, you know, just the hours were up and down, up and down, up and down. Like I had to be on unemployment assistance, which killed me because, like, I'm not a lazy person. But, like, you know, when you go from working essentially in a 2-week period, close to 90 to 100 hours to getting 2 hours on a 2-week check at certain points, like and then it would go back to normal, and then it'd go back to, okay, well, you only have 10 hours this week, and then, okay, you've got 30 hours this week, but now you've got you know what I'm saying? It was too much of a roller coaster. And it's like I just can't live my life like this. And that's when I was like, dude, I'm just gonna start my own business. And I loved the idea of rock and roll painting, especially with my background, with the way that I look, who I am as a person, and because I don't use spray rigs. I hand paint everything. I roll my walls out. I don't use a spray rig unless I'm doing like the joists and basement ceilings or like concrete work or duct work in a commercial space. I'd rather do it all by hand because you're going to get a better product at the end of the day anyway. Yeah. And so I basically ended up doing a 3,000 square foot house in Fort Wayne, Indiana, for a really good friend of mine, an old colleague from Sweetwater. And that was before I'd really started my business. It was like, well, let me see if I can put this out to the world, show people what I'm capable of. And, you know, I had a really good friend of mine who saw, you know, this house that I had done, and I did another house after that. And he was like, listen, I see that you're really passionate about what you do. And I gotta backtrack one more time. I had made a Facebook post. Basically, I had another job with a painting company. They did a background check on me, and then they were like, okay, this is not going to work. And the reason for that is I had a gun charge on my record from getting pulled over in the state of Ohio. And I told the officer, like, hey, just so you know, I have a registered firearm in my glove box. I want you to know about this. Yeah. And he was like, do you have a permit for the state of Ohio? And I was like, no. I was like, I don't live here. I'm just traveling through. And he's like, well, you need to have a permit. And I was like, I didn't know, because I still had a Mississippi license plate. I still had a Mississippi driver's license. And I was like, well, in the state of Mississippi, like, and obviously we're not in the state of Mississippi, but I'm like, oh, this applies to everywhere. Nope. And
no, sir.
It was a great life lesson for me. And I was like, you know, your vehicle is considered an extension of your home, so you don't have to have this permit. And the guy was like, man, I'm sorry. And next thing I knew, I'm in handcuffs in the back of a squad car. And I'm like, what's happening right now? And, you know, they tried to hit me with a class 4 felony, but luckily, because I don't break the law.
Did you know that over 80% of real estate agents call it quits within their first year in the business? It's a staggering statistic. But at mystarsacademy.com, we're here to change that narrative. Our expert-based training and coaching program caters to both agents and brokers. The Agent Accelerator program is your key to leveling up your real estate business. Learn how to generate a constant flow of free leads, convert those leads into loyal clients, and keep them coming back for more as repeat business. Our industry experts bring years of proven success to the table and provide one-on-one coaching to help you achieve structure and work-life balance. We'll map out a plan for you to follow, guiding you through the steps to scale and grow both in your business and personal life. Don't become another statistic. Visit mystarsacademy.com and enroll today to pave the way for your future success.
We're back in.
We are, and you can finish this amazing
Yes.
story. I was like, oh, we can't tell the rest of the story on the break. I want to hear what happens next.
Right?
You are in big boy jail.
It's perfect. Yeah,
That's where we left off.
So big boy jail, and as I was being processed, you know, obviously like the people at the jail are on guard, but like there was a woman there, and I was like, "Excuse me, ma'am," and she was like, "Yeah," you know, because at first she's like,
What do you want, criminal?
And I was like, "So how does this work?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, how does this work?" And she was like, "Have you never been to jail before?" And I was like, "No." And as I was telling her my journey to get there, like I saw her eyes getting wider and wider and wider. And she was like, I got her to the point where she was like, "Oh, baby." And I was like, okay, cool. I've got an ally here.
Right.
And she was like, "Sweetheart," she was like, "Do you want your own cell?" And I was like, "You were going to put me in general pop, like Orange is the New Black."
Oh,
like,
Yeah.
they were going to put me in that. And I was like, "Do I have to talk to anybody? Do I have to come out of it?" And she was like, "No." And I was like,
She's like, oh, muffin.
I was like, "I'll take that option." Like I got lucky because they didn't process me till like 11 o'clock at night. So everybody was like, I was like a ghost under the radar.
Yeah.
It was almost like my own special little episode of Scared Straight.
It wasn't like they were like, fresh meat, fresh meat,
Right,
fresh meat.
exactly. And like I feel very lucky for that, but it's like I shouldn't have been there in the first place. But you know, I ended up getting that downgraded to a misdemeanor, but like that company ran my info, and of course, like it shows misdemeanor, but all they saw was gun charge.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
And
You're like, oh, well, he's a problem.
it was so messed up because like I called him, like I spent a week with them. I worked circles around their crew of 4, like to the point of where we were working on a place called Up Dog Yoga in Rochester. You know where that's at? Do you know Jill by chance?
No, I know where that's
Okay.
at, though. I see it all
Jill
the time.
is amazing, and she's really one of the catalysts for rock and roll painting getting started. Because while I was working there before, because you know the guy gives you a week-long trial period,
Right.
Make sure you're gonna stick around. Got a job offer, ran my credit, blah 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 blah. Criminal, get out of here. Well, before I had left that job, you know, Jill walks up to me, the owner of the studio. She's like, "Hey, I've been watching you. I've been watching your other guys. You're way better than them. Do you want to make some side money?" And I was like, "Sure do."
Sure do.
And so she ended up having me paint her main yoga studio, which was like the shell of a tiny little house, but like just big open space. I didn't charge her much at all. She looked at me and she was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know how to bid stuff out right now, but like this feels good enough for me." It allowed me to buy a little giant ladder, which has been weirdly one of my prized possessions because I've made so much money with that damn ladder. It's unreal.
It's the little things in business.
Oh,
Yeah,
totally.
absolutely. Like when you gave me that Chromebook, like that was a game changer.
It's the red stapler.
Yeah,
It-
exactly.
And that's how I know that like I'm getting older too, because I'm like, tools, this is cool, you know.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
when I
For
get
sure.
excited about tools, I'm like, all right, well, we're growing, I guess. But
I got a RoboVac for Christmas, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
I got slippers, and that got me excited. So I'm also old.
It's the little thing. I mean, dude, my socks right here that I got from my friend, they were it was huge. It's the little things. But so basically by her offering me that side job, that kind of kickstarted, you know, me wanting to start my business. And then I had that big 3,000 square foot house that I did in Fort Wayne. So I had a couple different things to essentially put in my portfolio. And this guy, he saw my post and he was like, "Look, man, like if I add you to this group, you have to do what you say you're going to do. You can't slack. You can't do subpar work. Like you're putting my name on the line as well. And I was like, perfect. And basically, I got thrown into the Detroit Metro Investor and Realty page.
Yep.
And I started out with Keith Jordan and Dave and Tara Roberts, it's so funny that everyone thinks that Dave and Tara are my mom and dad. So, and there's actually a member in the group that still thinks that, like 3.5 years later, and I can't tell him. So Dave,
It's gone too far.
We're just letting it ride.
Dave and Tara are my mom and dad. So, but I started cutting my teeth on these little, 800 to 1,000 square foot ranch houses, and I was making nothing to do these houses, like $2,000 to paint it from top to bottom. But like it was one of those, like, I gotta show
paying your dues, like you're paying your dues.
I had to show these people who I was, what I was capable of, and like when I would call them 3.5 days later, I'm like, all right, your house is done.
They're like, stop.
They're like, what? And then they would go check it out, and they're like, we don't have to do touch-ups. And I was like, I know. How many people on your team? Just me.
Just me.
And
I slept in here, by the way. So
I mean, essentially, like, dude, there were some crazy nights where I would have to end up painting a basement. In these dingy little houses in like Redford or, Taylor or, like, oh God, what's the other area?
Inkster.
That's what I was
thinking too. You're an Inkster.
Yeah, I mean, like for real though, like,
in the 5 points.
Some of these houses, like there's a particular smell that you get hit with, and, like certain living conditions, but like I was turning them around, and then, I started getting to a point of where I was getting the attention of, bigger clients, and one in particular, Matt Stillman and his wife, Samantha. I absolutely love those two. They're some of my best friends in the world. And it started out just painting a door. One single door. And I was like, man, I think this is the color. And then someone at the paint store was like, no, this is the color you want. Turns out I was right,
Of course.
but like Matt was like, dude, you got to trust your gut instinct. He's like, man, just if you can repaint it. And I was like, I got you, like he gave me that second chance to do the door again, make it a right color. And the next thing you know, he's like, hey, would you mind doing a job out at Gun Lake for me? And we did an entire house out there, and it was like one of the craziest overnight trips I've ever had, because we didn't realize there weren't beds there. We didn't bring an air mattress. And my brother had come up to work with me from Mississippi, which he lives, up here now, which is awesome. But like there was a point where he and I were both sharing a drop cloth in this basement on a couch as a cover. Because like it was just one of those like put through the ringer. Window gets left open, 1,000 bugs come in, and we have to repaint like most of the house. But like, that was the first time that I had ever had a property manager or owner like come to the property and bring us lunch and sit down and break bread and like, hey, we want to get to know you. And I got to meet his designer, Kiara, and we all ended up chopping it up for about 2.5 hours. What was supposed to be like a 45-minute meet and greet turned into like 2 hours, and Matt and I were like, we're both anime nerds, okay, let's be friends. Like we realized that like, dude, if we would have been in high school together, we would have been at each other's houses doing sleepovers. Like he's got that energy, and through growing that relationship, I mean, I've gotten to do some pretty luxurious like 4,000 square foot homes that like one of the ones I just finished out in Buchanan, like we had 14 different colors that we chose from, and it was like a roaring 20s Great Gatsby vibe.
Nice.
Fun.
Oh
yes.
my God.
Like
Actually,
the black and gold. And
I gotta show you some of the pictures. It's one of the things that I'm proudest of, and let's see.
Yeah, and we're gonna make sure that we link. Oh, that is so cool. I'd live there.
and what's so cool is I recently did get to live there. I had my producer, Jacob Herman from Gothenburg, Sweden, come over, and I ended up having to do a third coat on a good majority of this house. even with the darker colors, but that house hadn't been painted in so long.
Yeah.
It was just soaking it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially because they were such deep bases and deep formulas, like it's some of those colors, like especially with like dark blues, you just have to do a third coat, and reds even too.
Yeah.
So I didn't charge the homeowner for a third coat. I was like, listen, like this sucks, but I don't want it to suck even more so for you, because, you know, you're looking at thousands more if we do this the right way. I was like, how about this? Let me stay here for a week. Let me write new music with my producer, and we'll call it even. And we worked out a deal like that. And you know, I've never gotten to go back and stay at a house that I've painted
Right.
to create art. And it was such a special thing. You know, and we ended up writing 5 new songs about 2.5 weeks ago that I'm insanely proud of. And I'm headed to New Orleans on the 21st. So like 10 days or something, like, no, 7 days. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's next weekend, the 21st.
Yeah, that
Dude,
snuck up on you.
That's crazy how quickly time flies. And then we're going down there to track the guitars and the bass, like do actual instrument tracking, because we just did writing and scratch tracks and demos. And then I'll be going to Gothenburg again over the summer to do vocals. And we've got Devin Clark from Cane Hill who's going to be doing the drums on that. And so just a lot of really cool, exciting stuff. But it's just, it's so funny to me, though, how it's like I'm trying, because obviously I would love to just play my guitar and make lots of money doing that. But like the painting is just so, it's the yin to my yang.
Yeah.
And it's what allows me to actually live my dream. And, you know, the fact that I got to take a job site and then turn it into a recording studio. Way too cool.
And that's such a creative space too. Just those couple
Yes.
pictures you sent. And we're
Yeah.
gonna link all your painting stuff and all of those in the show notes so the listeners can see it too. But you mentioned touring. Like, talk to us a little bit about touring, because
Okay.
that has to be like such a cool,
Crazy and fun
Right,
and
you're
wild
like
and
New
stressful
Orleans,
and the
Sweden,
best. Yes.
LA, like-
Absolutely.
So I really started my touring career when I was probably about 19, 20.
Wow.
And, you know, and these were the self-booked tours. So it wasn't great. Like the Van in the River down by that's one of those self-booked things. We were starting to try to get out to like Houston, Dallas, Shreveport, Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana. We would run through Mobile, Alabama, up to Montgomery, Huntsville. And, you know, we were starting to get into like Destin, Florida, Pensacola, you know, and when we did Welcome to Rockville with like Korn, Avenged Sevenfold, Lacuna, like everybody, in 2014, you know, that was the first time we got to play Jacksonville, Florida. And so we were sweeping the Gulf Coast area, like the Southeast, and then the Taproot thing. That was the first time that we toured up to Michigan. We toured to Pennsylvania. We were in, you know, more in Tennessee, and we were doing like more Midwest stuff. And then after that tour ended, we got to do our first West Coast run, which I love California. I love the West Coast, but it's first time playing LA at like the Whiskey A Go-Go. And like, there's something so special about driving over Santa Monica Boulevard and seeing your band name on the marquee of
That's
the
so
Whiskey.
yeah.
You know, like everybody started there. Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, every big band has come through the Whiskey at least once.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just like, it felt like I was on the right path with all of that. And, you know, first time we got to play Utah, Ogden, Utah, I think we did like Denver, Colorado, Colorado Springs, did Las Vegas. We were in New Mexico. So it was like, I was starting to realize like, man, like if I play my cards right, I can see the entire United States
Yeah.
because of music.
Yeah.
And maybe beyond that. And then, you know, once I got the call to join Taproot, I mean, God, we've done everything I want to say aside from the Pacific Northwest. But like, I don't know. I love being in a new place. I love getting thrown to the wolves, especially like, you know, with me joining Taproot, I'm the only non-original member in that band. So like, and they've created a worldwide impact. It's not just some small local band. They're more of a, and you know, they're not as big as Slipknot, no, but they're still a worldwide recognized, I would argue, brand and business at this point.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like there was a lot of pressure to, you know, retain the originality of that band and not overstep my bounds and meld with these guys. And I think I've been able to do that. And I've luckily been accepted by, I would say, a majority of the fans. There's still a couple of people like, we miss Mike or blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I can read your comments, you know, but that's going to happen one way or another. But like with Taproot, you know, like that's the first time I ever got to play New York City. And we played the Gramercy Theater on Manhattan. And like I fell in love with New York City. Like it just
like fills your spirit. Like your spirit is like expanding.
Does. Well, because the thing that I love about touring, like, yes, it is technically in a way a vacation, but it's like you get to experience the culture of different states, different cities, and you just get to meet people. And that's what I love about music, and that's why I do music, is because it's harmonious connection between all living beings. And to me, music is the most affordable therapy that there is, because it can help you get over whatever it is. It can help you get through something, and it can help enhance whatever situation that you might be in, you know, wedding, dates, kids, you know, important moments in your life. Like, music is the backdrop that creates that emotion. And like, when you're on stage and you're in a state that you're not from, but you see somebody in the crowd just like tears streaming down their face, screaming the lyrics, it's like it's hard not to just get lost into that energy and make that connection. And you know, you get to talk to these people after the show, and you get to hug them, and you like, it's the best, you know, it really is. Because you know, like, I feel like life is too short just to stay in my own little personal bubble. And as one of my favorite comedians, Bill Burr, said, like, you got to hang out with everybody, because not just one group of people has the answers. And I find that's true. And like, the more that I tour, the more places that I go to, the more I grow as a person, as a human being, and the more empathetic I am, the more open I am to other ideals. And I really like the person that I am today, and that I am still becoming. And I know that has a lot to do with me getting this opportunity to tour and be on the road. It's the best thing ever. The only thing that sucks is missing my dog and cat. I wish I had enough money to have my own bus to bring them with me, but I get lucky that I get to bring Macy on the road. And I will say that has nothing to do with her not trusting me. Or like, you gotta bring it. It's because I want to bring her on the road.
For sure.
I've never had a romantic relationship that I've been like, you should come on tour with me. Not because like I'm not the guy that's like, man, I can't wait to bang 5 chicks at this city, blah blah blah. Like, that's just not who I am. But like, it's like, I genuinely enjoy having Macy with me and getting to show her my lifestyle. And she is one hell of a merch girl. And that's the thing, like she comes on tour with Riding with Killers and Taproot, but like, that girl will sling $2,000-$3,000 of merch a night.
Nice.
Just because she knows she's just really good at what she does. And she's like my Sharon Osbourne without all the crazy drugs and like violence. It's like that. She has the business mindset of Sharon Osbourne, but it's like she's my Sherry Moon Zombie with like Rob Zombie, which, by the way, we're playing with Rob Zombie twice this year.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That'd be so cool to like play with all these people that like you looked up to your whole life. And now you are making an impact on others. So like, you see these people in the crowd and you're like, someday maybe I'll let you come play with me. You know, it's like this full circle thing. Cause I think that's like a really great theme that's kind of went throughout your talk, is like that mentorship piece to thing. Like, you were mentored when you were younger, and now, you know, you're getting to come and play with these other people that mentored you, whether they know it or don't know it, through music and things of that nature. And now maybe you'll be doing that for others.
I hope so. Because when I was younger, and I mean, I'm still somewhat of that angry young man still, but like, I grew up without my dad. I met that guy once. He's an asshole. So Glenn, if you're watching this, you're an asshole.
We agree.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm on that boat.
You know, I met him once, and that was honestly one time's too many. But like, you know, like, you grow up as a kid, you see all these other kids playing with their dad, and they have this actual nuclear family unit, and it's like, well, why don't I have this? And music was the thing that always caught me.
Yeah.
You know, anytime I was sad, kind of like with Mudvayne, like, hey kid, you're not weird. Like, same thing with that. Like, all these bands were my refuge, and it was a way to channel that negativity and turn it into something beautiful and positive. And that's why I do music. Is I hope I reach some kid, you know, halfway across the world, and they're like, oh my God, I'm not alone. You know? And that, because that's the whole point. You know, it like yeah, man, like it'd be great to make my career, you know, just guitar, and that's obviously the goal, but the root of it all is I'm here to help people. I'm here to help you get through whatever it is, through sounds and melodies and lyrics and poetry and, you know, angry, happy, sad, you know, all of these different tones. Like, I'm here to help you, and that's what it all comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I love what you said about how like music also like makes those moments like bigger in your mind. Like I can picture, like I can hear the Stain song we were listening to when we were bringing Trent home from the hospital. I mean, Andy are both like sobbing like freaking babies, right? Or like listening Pantera, making out with my high school boyfriend. Like there's all those like little key moments in your life that you remember, like the soundtrack to your life, as they say.
Truly.
And like where you were and what you're doing and what you were listening to when that was happening, and how it just like made that moment that much
Just
bigger
imprinted.
or more special or whatever it was.
And to piggyback off of what you just said, because you said Stained, rip John Wysocki, by the way, the original Stained drummer. He passed away last year, unfortunately, and I got to know him, which was amazing. And you know, we did a couple of shows with his other band, Lydia's Castle, which is still active out of Nashville. And you know, John was supposed to fill in a couple of shows with Taproot, and you know, we really formed a really special friendship. And when he passed away, I'll never forget it. I was about to go on stage at Rock Lansing, and then Macy walks up, and I was like, what's wrong? And I was the only one who knew what happened, so I literally went on stage, and I'm like, oh shit, John's dead. And then a couple weeks later, I get a phone call from his bandmate Tanya, and she was like, would you like to come play a song for John in Nashville? And they did a big memorial show. Like, you had Josie Scott from Saliva, you had Jared from Saving Abel, and like all these guys from all these bigger bands that I grew up with. We all came together, and we all just played a bunch of Stain songs. And like, when I got asked to do that, like there were tears in my face while I was there. Like, I'm gonna well up thinking about it, because he was just such a nice guy. And like, same thing with the Taproot thing. Like I grew up watching Stained on MTV, and like I cried to their music. I got pumped up to their tunes, and you know, and someone said, hey, do you want to come play a song for John? It's like, what do you mean I'm being asked by his family to come play a song and remember it? So it's like, it's crazy that like you were saying earlier, like the fact that I'm getting to interact with these people that I looked up to, and I'm being seen as a peer, and I really hope that I can extend that on to the next generation, you know, because it's cool. It means the world. You know, it really does.
But you had to take that initial initiative. And that's another theme I've noticed like throughout your talk is like, you take the initiative, like you walk up and say, do you remember me? Or, hey, let me cut this paint in. Right.
Yeah.
And like, that's
You're like, give me the brush.
It's huge though. Like we talk about that a lot on the show. Like you have to take action. If you want big things to happen, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to put yourself out there and say like, hey, I can be the one, right? I'm ready. I'll take that step. I'll take that chance. So
I used to, and I don't want to say I would get picked on, but like I was always the guy on the Gulf Coast at a younger age that I was able to find different guitar endorsements, like with Schecter guitars, Ernie Ball strings, Music Man guitars, PV amps, and I'm with different companies now. But like everyone would always be like, how do you do that? And I was like, I'm annoying. I'm very annoying.
It's not annoying, it's persistent.
Yeah, well, the squeaqui wheel gets the attention though, right?
Absolutely.
You know, and that's how I was able to find my way in. And, you know, I just, you got to take the risk, and maybe you'll catch somebody on a good day. But if you never ask, you don't know.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know?
You want to wrap with your fun questions?
Okay.
This has been so amazing.
Yes.
I love everything you shared. I feel like you
I
could
feel
come
like
on,
we
like
could-
3 more times.
Yeah, we could talk for 1,000
I was
days.
about to say I'll keep y'all here all day if you let me.
But it is Valentine's Day, and I know you got to get back to Macy's.
Yes.
So.
And she has to work tonight, unfortunately. So I'm gonna stop, get a little bouquet of roses, and we're probably gonna watch like Nosferatu at the house. Just have a fun little, because we didn't get to see that in theaters because we were on the road.
Let me know how that goes,
we-
because I've been eyeballing it, and like, I'm ready for vampires to be scary again, please.
Well, and we're both from the Gulf Coast, and we both, like, we're both from Gulfport, Mississippi, but New Orleans is our home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why I've got the fleur de lis and, you know, the moon and all that. But like, that's kind of, that's our thing.
Yeah.
You know, we have a big community that we hang out with at Santos, which is the vampire bar down in New Orleans. And I'm getting sidetracked. So you ask your question, otherwise
So
I will run us out of time.
So usually I ask about, I'll ask like, if you like, who's your favorite villain and why? But I'm eyeballing your ink on your hands, and I love the Joker.
Yes.
Why do you love him?
Oh God. So the thing about the Joker is that he is chaos embodied,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's why, like, I don't really have a favorite Joker, because every iteration of the Joker
Bring something.
is the correct choice.
Yes.
I think you guys
Because-
just became best friends, by the way.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's just he is such an interesting character, and like the newer movies that they did with Joaquin Phoenix, like both of them, even though the second one was musical, like I thought it was an amazing character study. He's just so interesting, and it's like the older you get, you're like, man, I kind of see his point.
That's
on
what
a
I
couple-
always say. I'm like, I would love to just walk. It's just, I love that he, my favorite, I go between like Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger. Those are my 2 favorites. And what I love about him is that he, like you said, he just is, and he just, for no reason, like he wakes up on Tuesday and he's like, I'm going to blow up a building today.
Yeah.
You know, like just, but again, what the other part that I love is like he's the, it's like him and Batman are like yin and yang. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I feel like even though there are other villains in the Batman series, like without Joker, there is no Batman.
Yep.
Like truly.
I agree. I mean,
I love it.
I got bats on the other side right there.
Yeah,
but,
I was checking everything out as you were talking. And I'm like, okay, he's one of my people for
and
sure.
My favorite Joker is actually Mark Hamill.
Okay.
It's from the 92 animated Batman series, and Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy. So Kevin was the voice of Batman in the 92 animated series, but those two have the most logged hours portraying Batman and Joker than any other, like even more than Cesar Romero. Did I say his name right? From the early 60s Batman with Adam West. But like,
Adam West.
you know, between video games, TV series, animated movies, stuff like that, like Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy are the top. But
Love it.
that was my safe space as a kid, was the animated Batman series.
Same.
So,
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming and chatting with us. There's so much more to say, but like I said, I know you got to get
we'll have a
back.
part
and
2 someday.
Part 2.
All right.
Stay tuned.
Absolutely. And before you guys go, make sure you sub the show and come back next week, because we drop fresh content every Thursday here on the Elite Life.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on the Elite Life Podcast with Trish and Kylie. Don't forget to share this episode with a friend so we can keep delivering you more fantastic insights on grit, grace, and growth. Stay connected with us on Instagram and Facebook, where we'll keep the ideas flowing to help you build a life you love and leave a legacy you can be proud of. Until next time.